So basically, we have got two laws of illumination, namely inverse square law and Lambert's cosine law. We are going to understand these two laws and also see the proofs or derivations of these particular laws. So first law we are going to talk about is inverse square law. So what does this law state? So it is with regards to the source and the illumination distance. Okay, the source is covering to a surface. So it states that illumination of a surface it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the surface and the source. So what does it state? It states that illumination of a surface is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the surface and a point source. So here there is a small pic I have shown here which is showing the proof, which is giving the illustration. Okay, we are going to prove that statement of inverse square law now. So let this particular figure, in this particular figure, let S be the source. Okay, we have got three different parallel plates with surface areas A1, A2, A3. You are observing there in the figure. So A1 it is at a distance of D meters, A2 it is at a distance of 2D meters, and A3 it is at a distance of 3D meters, or just D, 2D and 3D. It's the distances how the source and the three surface areas they are separated in square meters. Now here omega it is the solid angle, okay, that is of the irradiance or the radiation or illumination that is letting out of this particular source. Okay, yes. So let us start with our proof. Now for area A1, okay, how do you define the solid angle? Area by square of the distance square. Okay, this definition we have already seen, okay, with regards to solid angle. Okay, A1 that means divided by d square. Okay, so the luminous flux reaching the area A1 it is given as luminous intensity multiplied by solid angle. So that makes it I times omega. Okay, so that makes it I into A1 divided by d square. But what is illumination on the surface area A1? How can you calculate the illumination? That is luminous flux divided by area again. So that makes it E1 if you are considering the illumination on surface A1. Okay, that makes it flux by area, that is IA1 by d square into 1 by A1. You have divided the flux with area, no? So that gives your illumination. So that makes it A1 cancel, that makes it I by d square lux. So illumination with respect to surface area or the plate, parallel plate with surface area A1, it is I by d square lux. Similarly, you have illumination on surface on parallel plate with surface area A2, E2, it is given as I by 2D. The distance is 2D there from source to the parallel plate 2. So that makes it I divided by 2D whole square lux. And illumination E3 on the surface area on the parallel plate with surface area A3, it is given as E3. So that makes it a I divided by 3D whole square lux. Okay, so the distance between the source and the third parallel plate with surface area A3, the distance is 3D. So that is I divided by 3D whole square. So from the three equations, that is for your illumination with surface area E1, okay, sorry, A1 illumination E2 with surface area A2 and illumination E3 with surface area A3. Okay, we can have a ratio of this sorted out like this: E1 is to E2 is to E3 is equal to 1 by d square is to 1 by 2d square is to 1 by 3d square. So what is that you are understanding? illumination on any surface, that is E, is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the surface and the source. So this is how you are proving your inverse square law, that is first law of your illumination. So the law is proved. Okay, the law states that illumination of a surface is inversely proportional to the square of distance between the surface and a point source. Next, the second law, it's called Lambert's cosine law. So this law states that illumination at any point on a surface is directly proportional to the cosine of the angle between the normal at that point and the line of flux. So how we are going to prove it? We are going to take a example, a small illustration. Okay, here we have got lines of flux and we have drawn a normal to the surface, okay, on which these lines of flux emitting from a source is falling upon. Okay, so we are going to prove that illumination at that particular point on the surface, it is directly proportional to the cosine of the angle between the normal at that point and the line of flux. So the same is shown diagrammatically in a vector diagram in figure B. So you have got the source. Okay, from source you are having some line of flux. Okay, this particular line of flux, it is also drawn a normal to that particular line of flux. Okay, the PR you are observing. Okay, the PRS you are observing, PRQ you are observing. So here PQ, it is the surface area normal to the source and inclined at an angle theta to the vertical axis. Where is PQ? PQ is the total straight line exactly in opposition to your source. Okay, so how it is aligned? It is at a point normal to the source and inclined at an angle theta to the vertical axis. And what is your RS? RS, it's your surface area again normal to this vertical axis and inclined at an angle theta to the source. This is inverse of that RS. Okay, source O. So from the figure we understand that PQ is equal to RS cos theta. That is theta you are observing the perpendicular angle. Okay, omega is the solid angle. Okay, you have got the dotted line exactly, you know, cutting the R, that is the vertical. So from there you are dropping a normal, so that the angle is theta you are observing. So the PQ, it is given as RS cos theta. So the illumination of the surface PQ, it is nothing but again flux by area. So that is again given by I times solid angle divided by area. Area of what? PQ. So that is I divided by area of PQ into area of PQ divided by D square. It can be written in both ways. So this is how you are getting, this is you are getting from solid angle is given as area by radius square. So from that you are getting I by D square. So this is illumination of surface PQ. Now the illumination of the surface RS. Now ERS is again similarly got flux by area of RS. So flux divided by area of PQ cos theta. So that is PQ is what? RS cos theta. We have already designated that in first equation. PQ is RS cos theta. So that makes it a PQ by cos theta. RS is PQ by cos theta. So that is I by D square into cos theta. So from the figure we already know that cos theta is H by D. Where is this H? H is the horizontal, whatever perpendicular you have taken considering to the theta, but a line drawn exactly parallel to that. Okay, that is how you are defining the height from your source. Okay, so that is H by D, or you can also give it as D is equal to H by cos theta. You are going to substitute this particular quantity in the previous equation. Okay, that makes it ERS is equal to I divided by H by cos theta whole square. Okay, that is your d square. Okay, into cos theta. That makes it I divided by h square cos cube theta. So your ERS is 1 by d square cos theta, that is 1 by h square cos cube theta. ERS is I divided by d square cos theta. We already got that. Okay, the equation where that is can also be represented as I divided by h square cos cube theta. So what did you prove here? The distance between the source and the surface. Okay, in meters. Okay, height again, height of the source in meters. I luminous intensity in candela. The equation is known as cosine cube law also. Okay, it is also called Lambert's cosine law or cosine cube law. So did we prove what we wanted to prove? Illumination E at any point is directly proportional to the cosine of the angle between the normal. So did we prove that it is cosine of the? Yes, we have proved. It is the illumination ERS is cosine of the angle, okay, of between the normal at that point and the line of flux. What is the normal at that point? Your height, that is defined as h here. Okay, and what is your I is your intensity, illumination intensity. So I divided by h square cos cube theta. You have proved that it is cosine of the normal to the angle. Okay, so these are the two laws. First one is inverse square law and second one is Lambert's cosine law. So inverse square law, it states that illumination of a surface is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the surface and the point of a source, the point source. And Lambert's cosine law, which states that illumination E at any point on a surface, it is directly proportional to the cosine of the angle between the normal at that point and the line of flux. So what is that you are supposed to note down from these two laws? We understand that inverse square law is only applicable for the surfaces if the surface is normal to the line of flux. Lambert's cosine law is applicable to the surfaces if the surface is inclined at an angle theta to the line of flux. Otherwise, these two laws fail in each case. Understand? So these laws are only applicable, okay, inverse square law if it is normal, Lambert's cosine law if it is inclined at an angle of the line of flux. So this is about your laws of illumination. Next, we are going to talk something about polar curves. So what are polar curves? You already have seen many definitions like intensity, light intensity, luminous flux, etc., etc. So the luminous flux emitted by a source, it can be determined by using intensity distribution curve. Okay, so this intensity distribution curve, okay, it is called polar curve. So we assumed that luminous intensity or candle power from a source, it is distributed uniformly, but in practice it is not so. Okay, it's not uniform in all directions. So the luminous intensity or the distribution of light, it can be represented, which is not uniform in all directions. It's represented with the help of polar curves. So the polar curves are drawn by taking luminous intensities in various directions at an equal angular displacement in the sphere. So we have a radial ordinate pointing in any particular direction on the polar curve representing luminous intensity of the source, whether you are viewing it from a vertical direction or whether you are looking it from a horizontal direction. So you have got two different types of polar curves here. So horizontal polar curves one type and vertical polar curves other type. Horizontal polar curves on the x-axis, vertical polar curves on y-axis in a coordinate system. So the first one observing here is horizontal polar curve. The curve is plotted between candle power and the angular position. Okay, if the luminous intensity Thus, your candle power is measured in the horizontal plane about vertical axis. It is called horizontal polar curve. If the same curve, okay, if it is measured in vertical plane and angular position, okay, and you have got a horizontal angular position, it is called vertical polar curve about horizontal axis. Okay, it is called vertical polar curve. So whatever polar curves you are observing, these are drawn for a simple or small ordinary lamp. Okay, so these two polar curves you're observing. One is, one you have drawn with a candle power in horizontal plane about vertical axis. Another one you have drawn in a vertical plane with a horizontal axis. Just hold on a second. Example. యూస్ చేస్తే చేయలేకపోతే కూర్చుంటారు. Okay, so these are your polar curves, horizontal polar curves and vertical polar curves. So we are observing a depression at a 180 degrees in each case. Okay, on the x-axis you are observing, in horizontal curve you are observing it at a 0 degrees. Okay, and in vertical polar curves you are observing it at a 180 degrees. However you see it. Okay, you start from 0 on the left side or start from 0 on the right side. However, it is observed at a 0 degrees either or 180 degrees. So you in vertical, for example, in this case you are observing it at 180 degrees. So this is due to the lamp holder. Okay, in horizontal axis you are observing the same at a 0 degrees. So this is also due to lamp holder. So slight depression at 0 degrees in horizontal, this is because of a coiled coil filament. It's not lamp holder exactly, it might be a lamp holder, but you are everyone is familiar with a tungsten filament, you know lamps. So that's an ordinary lamp. If you are using a regular size tungsten filament coil, okay, so you will not have that depression. If you have got a coiled coil filament, we are going to see all this construction later on. So you will be observing these such kind of you know depression. So they are used to determine the actual illumination of a surface by employing the candle power in that particular direction. So this is read from the vertical polar curve. So these are used to determine mean horizontal candle power MHCP and mean spherical candle power MSCP. So mean horizontal candle power, it can be determined from horizontal polar curve, and mean spherical candle power, okay, it can be found from you know polar curve using vertical polar curves. Okay, there is a construction called Rauschu's construction. Okay, so the polar curves are based upon this particular construction, so generalized construction structure for a lamp, okay, from which you can obtain this particular polar curves drawn. It is like a measuring instrument which draws the candle power intensity of a lamp or a light source, and that is going to give you some details to plot this polar curves. So next topic we are going to talk about is integrating sphere. So what is integrating sphere? So it is an optical device. Usually this is used for flux measurement. So an integrating sphere, it collects radiation from a source completely external to the optical device, usually for flux measurement or optical attenuation. So the radiation introduced into an integrating sphere strikes the reflective walls and undergoes multiple diffuse reflections. So integrating sphere, it is usually a spherical closed structure with a small opening to let the radiation pass inside, reflect multiple times. We are using this for flux measurement. So this integrating sphere, it's also known as Albert sphere. So it is an optical component consisting of a hollow spherical cavity with its interior covered with a diffused white reflecting coating. So with small holes for entrance and exit ports. So what is its relevant property? Its relevant property is uniform scattering or uniform diffusing effect. So light rays that are incident at any point on the inner surface by multiple scattering reflections, they distribute equally to all other points. Okay, so the effects of original direction of light, they are minimized. So this is typically used with some light source and a detector for optical power measurements. For small commercial integrating sphere, the cost will be thousands of dollars. So usually people often limit this to industry and large academic institutions. Okay, they only use this integrating sphere for you know luminous flux measurement. So this is the construction diagram of integrating sphere. On the right side, you are observing that the source of light is falling onto the integrating, which starts to reflect in multiple directions. The water detector, okay, that calibrates the reflection, that calculates the luminous flux. The second, figure you are observing the incoming light, you know reflected in multiple directions. Okay, so this multiple directions, the red line is the incoming ray of light. From there it is distracting into blue light. From blue light again it is distracting into yellow light. From yellow it is again distracting into green. So it's got multiple deflections. So the amount of reflections it is observed, okay, we are going to calculate the luminous flux or the flux intensity of a light source, okay, using a detector attached at the top of this integrating sphere. So this is a practical integrating sphere you are observing, okay, without any light source being okay an open. You're observing the coating, white coating, which is used for the reflection purpose inside the integrating sphere. A person practically working here with the light source to make the reflections possible inside the integrating sphere and measure the light intensity of the light source. Usually this integrating sphere, the purpose of it is to determine the luminous flux. Okay, so the flux emitted by a light source. Okay, we want to know before we install a light source into an aesthetic, into a building, into a civil structure, ఎంత వరకు అది పనికి వస్తుంది, ఓకే, ఆ పర్టికులర్ సివిల్ స్ట్రక్చర్ కానీ డిటర్మైన్ చేయడం కోసం మనం దీన్ని యూజ్ చేస్తాం. The theory of integrating spheres, it is based upon some assumptions. So the first assumption is the amount of light hitting the sides of the sphere, the way it is scattered in a diffused way in multiple directions. So that's the first assumption. Only light that has been diffused in the sphere hit the ports, okay, or the detectors. You're observing detectors on the top. Okay, here you're observing the detector. So here also you're observing the detector, the small pole. Okay, you're observing at the top, that's the detector. Only light that has been diffused in the sphere hits the ports or the detectors. Using these assumptions, the sphere multiplier, it can be calculated. So this number is the average number of times a photon is scattered in the sphere before it is absorbed in the coating or escapes through the port. So multiple times reflections అన్నీ అయ్యి ఆ పోర్ట్ నుంచి ఎస్కేప్ అయ్యేటప్పుడు ఆ పోర్ట్ దగ్గర ఉన్న డిటెక్టర్లో మనకి ఆ పర్టికులర్ రిఫ్లెక్షన్, ఫైనల్ రిఫ్లెక్షన్ కనిపిస్తుంది. సో మనకి ఎన్నిసార్లు రిఫ్లెక్షన్స్ పోర్ట్ నుంచి అవుట్ అవుతాయో that all will be calculated, okay, over a certain period of time. That is the luminous flux emitted out of that particular light source. So this number increases with the reflectivity of the sphere coating and decreases with the ratio between the total area of ports and other absorbing objects in the sphere inner area. So based upon this, we have the following formulae. For a sphere with radius r, reflection coefficient rho, source flux phi, the initial reflecting irradiance, it is given as rho times phi divided by 4 pi r square. Every time the irradiance it is reflected, the reflection coefficient grows exponentially. So what happens? The reflected irradiance E, it is given as phi by 4 pi r square into rho times 1 plus rho square plus and so on up to infinite. Since the reflection coefficient is always less than 1, this being a geometric series, it converges, and we can deduce the formula for the total exit irradiance, like the final one you are observing here, pi divided by 4 pi r square into rho by 1 minus rho. So this is the formula you are going to calculate, okay, used for calculating of your total flux, okay, reflected inside a sphere, calculated at the or observed at the detector. So talking about the applications of integrating sphere. So integrating spheres, they are used for a variety of optical measurements, photometric measurements, radiometric measurements, etc. They are used to measure total light radiated in all directions from a lamp. It can be used to measure diffuse reflectance of a surface, okay, providing an average over all angles of illumination and observation. So integrating sphere can also be used to create light source with apparent intensity uniform over all positions within its circular aperture and independent of the direction except for cosine function inherent to ideally diffused radiating surfaces. So these are the applications of your integrating sphere. So next one is lux meter. So lux meters, they are used for measuring brightness in either lux or FC, foot candle, or candle per meter square. So some lux meters, they are equipped with internal memory or data logger to record and save measurements as well. So the measurement of light intensity, okay, with a lux meter. So this has become increasingly important in 1970s. Okay, this is due to growing industrial revolution and the placement of effective lighting in industries for the workpiece to take shape. So lux meters with data loggers, they are highly regarded in the industry due to devices cosine correction of angle of incident light. So lux meters, they include modern lux meters, they include softwares for detailed analysis and offer different interfaces for transfer measuring data, whatever data you are measuring, okay, to a computer. Okay, so lux meters have got a data loggers. So this is a lux meter. So Hyoki, it's a company in Korea. They have first developed a lux meter, okay, called Lux High Tester 3421, okay, in 1979. Since then, it's about 41 years almost that these particular lux meters are being vividly used, okay, to measure the lux or luminous flux intensity of a particular light source. Okay, they have subsequently launched two more meters, 3422 and 3423 in the subsequent years. Okay, this is the practical lux meter you are observing. Okay, this is looking similar to your multimeter that you have observed, but it is only for light intensity in lux or foot candle unit measurements. So the black structure with a white globe you're observing, that is where you're trying to make your light intensity fall. So accordingly, the amount of flux, okay, or the amount of brightness, okay, in lux, it is measured, it is reflecting on the measuring scale. So these instruments, they remain in use in luminance measurement applications such as lighting installation and facility management. Usually all type of, you know, civil aesthetics, okay, street lighting, okay, elevation lighting, lighting of monuments, lighting of architectures of importance, lighting of heritage sites, okay, lighting of, you know, high rise buildings, okay, they all use these particular lux meters to measure the luminescence. Understand? So different types of, you know, spaces, okay, the lux measured by the lux meter in foot candles or lux or in watts per meter square, okay, some of them are given here. A bedroom, 20 to 30 foot candle, it may be 200 to 300 in terms of lux, or 0.38 watts per square foot. Okay, so cafeteria, classroom, conference room, corridor, exhibit space, gymnasiums, sports, games, okay, sports fields, games fields, indoor fields, outdoor fields, kitchen, food preparation, lab room, laboratory classrooms, okay, all these different, these are few mentioned. You find a detailed set in the internet, you can go through the amount of light levels in foot candles or in flux or in watts per meter square or square foot, okay, for different spaces. This is all measured information that is being uploaded. This is standard set used by many utilities, commercial, industry and domestic to fix upon a light source, okay.